Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for tonight's webinar featuring information for baseball umpires for the 2020 summer season. My name is Tom Florian. I will serve as your host and moderator this evening. I'm with the Iowa Girls High School Athletic Union. I am helping serve as host tonight for the Iowa High School Athletic Association. I'd like to introduce our panelists for this evening's presentation, starting off with the Executive Director of the Iowa High School Athletic Association, Tom Keating. He's joined by Assistant Directors Jared Chizik and Todd Tharp, and they're also joined by Director of Officials Louis Curtis. So I'd like to now pass it along to Executive Director Tom Keating.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks to all of you for taking time out of your schedules to join us. We thought it might be a good idea for us to run through the guidance regarding protocol for our ball games with you. We've already visited with our ADs and our coaches, and we needed to do that right away because the practices, which began today, were kind of upon us. So we wanted to take care of them first, and then certainly wanted to get to you prior to games starting. So we thought, a couple weeks ahead, we'll give you a little time to digest what we have to say, and maybe ask a few questions and follow up as needed. A couple things just procedurally. We will record this and we will post it eventually, so that if you want to go back and watch something, you certainly can. We are going to kind of go through the information and would ask you to submit your questions through the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. Don't use the chat button. We're just going to leave that go for now, and the Q&A will be our depository for where your questions are, and then Jared, Todd, and Louie are going to go through those and try to get those answered as we go through the presentation, and then at the end we'll cover those questions. We want to thank you for the work that you do, not just this year but every year, and but in particular this year, is an important one because there's been a lot of uncertainty about whether we would play or not. There's been a lot of uncertainty about what protocols would be in place. And we'd like you to know that your safety is as important to us as it is for the players and the coaches and the fans. We take that responsibility seriously, and the protocols that have been put in place are as much to protect you as they are to protect everybody else that's involved in the game. We will do our best to get through the information quickly, but also get through it in a way that gives you the important information that you'll need to be able to do your job effectively. And again, thank you. Without you, these games don't happen. It's pretty simple. So we appreciate your willingness to get back in the game and give these kids an opportunity to play throughout the summer. So having said that, let's move ahead and get through some of the information we need to. The one thing, I guess, the overarching consideration is that when it comes to safety with COVID, it's really all about droplets. It's about transmission of droplets, through the air, maybe by contacting it. Either you ingest it from somebody else who's been speaking, you breathe it in, or you touch something that they've touched immediately after they have touched their hands to their face or their mouth, and then you go to your face or your mouth with it. So it's the droplets that are the big thing. I think that's going to be important. Now, what we've learned is that, this idea about 6 feet is an important one. What we know now is that if you're less than 6 feet apart for anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes, and it depends on who you ask. Some county health departments are saying 10 minutes. The Iowa Department of Public Health is saying 30 minutes. That if you are in close proximity to somebody for that period of time, you're increasing your chance of contracting whatever it is they have in their system. And if somebody has COVID, then you're at risk of contracting that as well. Now, when you think about it, in a baseball game, there aren't very many opportunities to be less than 6 feet away from somebody for 10 to 30 minutes or longer. I think probably if kids are in the dugout, during an inning, that's one option. Obviously, an umpire who is in close proximity, the home plate umpire in close proximity to the catcher, but you have the opportunity to step away in between batters. So you're helping yourself with that. Many of you do that already to give yourself a little bit of a stretch break and just back away and give that batter a chance to get in there and then step back in and make it happen. As always, washing hands, sanitizing hands is important. You can never do enough of that. And then, avoid touching our faces. We're hearing that over and over and over again. These three things are as important for us as they are for anybody else. Okay. There's been some chatter, about face coverings and do they help? Do they not help? Are they required? Are they permissible? The answer is they absolutely are permissible. The IDPH in our conversation with them mentioned a few things for us. One is it creates this psychological sense of security. It may not be as effective as everybody thinks it is, but if it gives people comfort and it makes you feel better having it on and feel more secure, then by all means, go ahead and wear a face covering. That is absolutely within your realm. It also encourages touching the face because you've got the mask on. Oddly enough, or bizarre enough, if you touch the mask, it becomes ineffective. It's no longer doing its job. If it's not worn properly, if it's down below your nose, or it's not covering your entire mouth, then it's less effective as well. And the other pieces we all know, especially this week now, right, including today and tomorrow, we're going to get into the 90s, and we'll have a lot of those days in Iowa, and it's kind of uncomfortable to have that mask on, and we get that. So if you want to wear it, by all means, go ahead. If you don't want to wear it, you do not have to wear it. As far as screening and testing, I think when we start talking about washing our hands, how often should we do it? Just follow the protocol. 20 seconds of washing your hands, wash them as much as you can. And, anytime you feel you've come in contact with anything that somebody else has come in contact with, sanitize your hands or wash your hands. All right. Social distancing in terms of the dugout, what we're saying is only essential personnel are to be in the field or on the field of play, including the foul territory and the dugouts. So we've defined that as players, coaches, trainers, and umpires. Nobody else. Statisticians, no. Pitch count folks, no. Bat boys and girls, no. None of those, photographers, etc. We don't want them on the field. The more we limit who's there, the better we can control this thing. Jared, Todd, Louis, did you have anything to add to that? Okay. All right, on to the next one. How should a coach interact with an umpire during a contest? Well, when we had the coaches on here, we said with kindness, be nice, and obviously stay apart. We've asked people to keep their distance and not get in each other's faces when we're having those conversations, whether it's an argument or a clarification or whatever it is. Who should be involved with a coach's trip to the mound? We're trying to limit, we've asked our coaches to limit that as much as possible. As I told them, unless, Nuke's eyelids are clogged up and he can't breathe through them, or Jose's glove has a curse on it, and you need to sacrifice a live chicken to get rid of that curse, and you're trying to figure out what to get Jimmy and Mary for their wedding gift. You don't need the whole team at the mound. So again, for you guys, you don't need to enforce that. We've asked the coaches to limit that and just call the kids as needed. So I'm guessing they'll manage that just fine. You don't need to worry about how many kids are on the mound. Okay. The next one is pregame meetings, exchange of lineup cards, and then handshakes after the contest. Typical, the head coach from each team and 2 umpires at home plate, and all the players just stay in the dugout. Lineup cards can be exchanged as normal, and then handshakes, again, you don't have to enforce this. We've told the coaches, we've told the ADs, and they're to instruct their kids. it's unfortunate, but they're not going to be able to go through the line and shake hands. The pregame, let's see. Okay, so then face coverings. Again, back to face coverings. They're not required, okay? They're not required. If they are worn, then we ask that they're a solid color. And then the sanitizer, those are to be provided by the individuals who are going to be using those. Jared, Todd, do you guys want to weigh in on any of that?
Do not, like I said, if someone shows up with a multicolored face mask or a face covering, you're not going to make the individual remove the mask. It's our preference if it's a single solid color, but if it's one with a pattern, allow them to still wear the mask.
Can a player wear a face shield? The answer is no, because it's a bigger danger to other people than it is a help. So they can have, like a clear looking like a welder's mask or anything that, starts at the top of the helmet and comes down. So no, no face shields. Okay. Baseballs, how often should they be sanitized before and after the game? And here's what we've kind of given as guidance to our ADs and coaches is think more about hands than about the balls and the bats. So if the kids will sanitize their hands often, then we really don't have to worry a lot about that ball or that bat. So if, like in a practice, kids are using about 100 balls. So instead of washing 100 balls after each, or sanitizing 100 balls after each drill, kids should sanitize their hands after each drill and then get back in there. Now, the one exception is if a pitcher takes their hand to their mouth and then they touch the ball, we've got to have the ball out of play. If a defensive player fields the ball after hand to mouth touching, which is not going to be as easy for you to pick up and see as it is the pitcher, you would treat it the same way. It's a dead ball in the fielder's situation. It's a dead ball after the play. In the pitcher's situation, kill it right away and throw the ball out, have the pitcher sanitize his hands, and then we get back at it and we go. We bring a new ball in. The bats is going to be before and after practice and before and after the game. How often should you use hand sanitizer? The answer is never enough. Just anytime you think about it, use it. And, it's just an easy way to protect ourselves, okay? Inclement weather, again, that's going to be, your call. Your responsibility is if you see lightning or you hear thunder, you're going to stop things. And it's the supervisor's responsibility to tell people where they are to go. We have advised our ADs that they should take people indoors and get them spread out. The imminent danger is the storm. We got to get people away from that first. And then once we get them inside, we can spread them out, use social distancing to try to keep people apart and keep them a little bit safer. Jared, Todd, anything else on that?
Like you said, as Thomas said, the school should not have to revamp the emergency action plan if lightning or anything else were to come out this summer when you guys are working. So that's the most important thing. That part is not changed for our schools.
All right. So we've already had a couple situations where schools have told us they are not going to play their season. There may be a situation that comes up during the season where either the Department of Public Health says that a certain school cannot play, that team cannot play tonight or this week or for 10 days or whatever it is. And if that's the case, then the game's just called a no contest. If the school chooses on their own not to play, then it's a forfeit. But either way, that doesn't really concern you. Just know it's possible that some games are going to get canceled. And when it comes to payment, when it comes to compensation for you as an umpire, we're telling schools that no contests and forfeits be treated the same as weather postponements and cancellations. So if it was done a day before the game, maybe there's a protocol that school follows. If you've already arrived at the game, maybe there's a different protocol. But whatever they would do for weather is what they will do if that game doesn't happen, if that game's not played. Postseason schedule, there's no change to the postseason schedule. Jared, Todd, anything you guys need to add to that?
It's looking as if we have any games on July 9th, it's only going to be one or two of them, if that.
Okay. Yeah, because of a couple schools that have pulled out already. Okay. If you've registered, but then you decide you don't want to umpire, please contact Laura Brooker prior to June 15th, and she will talk you through the refund process if you choose not to do that. Make sure that you talk it over with whoever you think you need to, your family. Think about your own situation and make your decision on whether or not you want to work. And we'd love you to work, but your safety comes first, and we don't want to jeopardize that. And if you feel like, what, guys, I just don't feel good about this, I don't feel comfortable, then we get it, and we absolutely understand, and people will fill in, no doubt about it, right? Prior to the game, you're asked to, check your own temperature before you get there. If you've got 100.4 or above, it's considered a fever. And if you have a fever, then it's, the IDPH is telling us before you can work a game, you'd have to be fever-free for 72 hours. Make sure, as if we would, at work, same thing. Stay home if you're sick, stay home if you've been exposed to somebody who's been diagnosed. If you test positive, please communicate that with your county public health, and then follow their recommendation on what to do and then who to communicate with. And then again, when it comes to, when you get to the game, things like where do I park and, and where do we come in, just check with the administrator at the school like you always do, and they'll let you know if anything's changed. There are just some guidelines to, again, keep you safe, minimize the risk, all right? And again, more things. There are no concession stands open. At least that's the way the season is going to start. So make sure you bring your own refreshments to the game site so that you're prepared for that. And then as hard as it is, sometimes you just have to maintain social distance, even when you run into people that you've known forever. Just kind of keep your distance and keep everybody safe. We already talked a little bit about this on the pregame meetings, so we can go by that one. And umpires are not going to handle game balls. That's going to be a little different for you. The home team is still going to provide the baseballs. And then when the game is on, the defense is going to supply balls, their supply to their pitcher. And then, they're going to have to sanitize them if the ball has been thrown out, and then, take a look at them for cuts and unplayable conditions. If you really feel like you need to inspect a ball, just ask the catcher to hold it for you, turn it so you can take a look at it. Then you can make the decision on whether it stays in play or not. Coaches are going to report substitutions directly to you, and they will do that, while they're social distancing. Jared and Todd, anything you guys need to add to that?
The balls, again, the recommendation is it's going to be coming into the team on defense. All foul balls are being recommended to be gathered by the team on defense. This will be a change we know from many schools, because usually that on-deck batter is responsible for getting those foul balls hit directly to the screen. Again, we will need patience to get this process started with. Everything is going to look a little different. Everything's going to take a little bit longer as we get started here on June 15th.
Yeah, and it's, it is like everything. It's going to look a little bit different, and we'll get in a rhythm, no doubt about it. At some point, we'll get in a rhythm, but the beginning of it is going to be a little clunky, I think. And my guess is you guys will get this figured out, and the games will move along. Just a few do's and don'ts here. No need, don't reach down and pick up a bat and toss it back over to the dugout. Don't grab the catcher's mask if he's throwing it off to field a pop fly. Don't go over to the dugout. And like we tell the players and coaches, no chew, no sunflower seeds, and things like that. And of course, again, maintain social distance, even with your partner, if you two have to go over a call or you've got to review something. Same when you're leaving the game. When you get finished with the game, make sure you wipe down your own equipment. Obviously, you're going to clean stuff before the next time you do an umpiring job. All right, the rule adaptations. The first one, it goes back to the pitcher going to the mouth. We've already talked about that. So the ball should be called dead, and then it's no pitch. Whether the kid pitched or whether he tries to throw it over to first or any other base, as soon as you see that, call time and kill the ball, and just remind the young man that we're not going to our mouth here. We just can't. We're gonna have to throw the ball out. He's gonna have to sanitize his hand and then get the next ball. When the fielder goes to their mouth, treat it as a delayed dead ball, and same thing. We throw the ball out, we sanitize the hands, and off we go. Jared and Todd, anything on that?
We understand that's going to be the biggest hang up as we get things started. We know pitchers, given who they are, they may go to their mouth every other pitch. So this is going to get interesting to start the season off with. We know the concerns. We know how long this could take. We are stressing with our coaches here these first 2 weeks to try to break a habit that many of these kids may have had for the last 10 plus years of playing baseball. Again, we're asking for patience along with this. We believe with the pitcher, it's easy. Just kill it now. Treat it as if it were, kill the ball, dead ball. Runners go back, and just again let action continue to happen if a fielder does it. Because again, at that point, all bets are off. Do not penalize the offensive team in a sense of killing it right away. Allow that to be treated as a delayed dead ball situation.
Got it. Okay, thanks, Jared. I think we don't want to. It's going to take a while for the kids to get used to it. It just says I don't think we want to go as far, as saying let's put pepper juice on their hand so they won't go to their mouth. They'll figure it out. They'll learn it, and it's just going to take a few reminders, and then again they'll get into a rhythm. Players and coaches are allowed to wear a face mask, and they're also allowed to carry a small bottle of sanitizer on their in their pocket. Schools are going to be able to put a 2-ounce bottle of hand sanitizer behind the mound. We don't think that's going to interfere with play. It'll be rare if it does, and we're willing to live with that just to have the convenience of having that bottle there, so the pitcher doesn't have to have somebody from the dugout throw one out to them. And then if we have a media box, schools are okay to put a media box out there, but only one person from the media can be in that media box. And again, that is not your responsibility to do anything about that. That'll be the supervisor's responsibility. So you worry about managing the game, they'll worry about managing the event, right? So we want a plate umpire behind the catcher, and every game should have 2 officials, should have 2 umpires. That's our, that's what we want. There are situations where that may not happen, but we want, even in sub-varsity games, we don't want the plate umpire to work behind the mound. There are no protocols for two umpires in the field in the same area. There's no mechanics for that. So we'd rather that umpire be behind the plate. Schools have also been reminded that when they extend their dugouts, which they can do to get their kids spread out, they can extend the dugout down the foul line toward the outfield. but those kids will have to all have a helmet on at all times. Adults are the only people that are allowed on the field, coaches, the meaning coaches and umpires in the field that don't have to have a helmet on. But kids do when they're outside that. And now the exception would be if, you know, a school chooses to install a temporary fence in front of those kids, then they would not need a helmet. But if it's open, then they're going to have a helmet on. And again, all you need to do is, you know, like you would in a game, if a kid ran out on the field to grab a ball or something, you'd tell them, get your helmet on. And you can remind them, nothing wrong with that, right? Yeah, if the only time the dugouts can go toward home plate is if the kids are behind the fence. So maybe maybe there's bleachers right behind the fence in that area, and they can be there. Otherwise, they cannot be closer to home plate than the dugout is. Schools may request that you may encounter a school that says, we're going to check your temperature. You know, I wouldn't get worked up about that. I've been checked before I've gone into restaurants. So fine, I actually feel better about that. You know, check me and make sure that I'm safe. So I'd say that's okay if they want to do that. Some schools may say, we want umpires to wear a mask. We're waiting, we're trying to find out, we're trying to get a ruling on this from the Department of Ed, whether a school can say, if an umpire is going to work our game, they have to wear a mask. For now, what I think I would say is visit with your assigners and ask them, do you know of any schools that are saying they're going to require umpires to wear masks? And then you decide if you want to work that school or not. If a school says, yes, you know, we pay them, they're an independent contractor for us, and one of the conditions of working for us is going to be they've got to wear a mask. If they do that, then, you know, and you don't want to wear a mask, then you're by all means, you know, you can say assign somebody else to that game because I don't want to work it. Let me add a little levity to this. We had a meeting at Principal Park today. We went down and kind of walked the park and talked through what's it going to look like for the state tournament this year. And it was great visit, but during that visit, we were told all of our staff from the IHSAA at the state tournament at Principal Park will wear masks. We were told you will wear masks when you come in here. So there are places that do require them. And if you're very uncomfortable with that, then I think check with your assigners, see if they know any schools that are doing that. And if you are very uncomfortable with that, then have a conversation with them. We'll let you know what we find out in terms of, you know, yes, they're within their rights to say that, or no. I'm not going to take a guess at which way that's going to go. The other thing is you guys are responsible for what's happening on the field. You don't need to worry about bleachers. You don't need to worry about anything that's going on with spectators other than if somebody's unruly, then obviously you call the supervisor over. And just so you know, we have told our ADs and our coaches, we want a supervisor at the game. So you know how it is. Sometimes the AD is the coach and the coach is or maybe the AD's not even there. Maybe they're a 9-month contract AD. So the coach is the supervisor. We've told them, we've strongly encouraged them to have a supervisor separate from the coach. And that person will be taking care of everything outside the realm of the field of play, okay? Some of you have asked, are we covered, meaning you, are the umpires covered, you know, against liability for COVID? And the short answer is no. Not through the NFHS insurance. There is an exclusion on that policy that says that we're not covered for viruses and bacteria. So again, just know that that particular policy doesn't cover you. Your own personal liability coverage might. You'd have to check with your own your own carrier on that. And but we want to be very clear about that and want you to know up front about that situation. And that's true in all 50 states. You know, whatever officials are licensed and registered through NFHS and gets their insurance through them, they're not covered by that policy. Okay. We've got some questions that I think Jared and Todd, Louie have been trying to get answered. We'll head to those now so that you can hear the answers to those questions. So if we want to bring those up, Tom, do you want to read those questions?
I think Louie's going to read the question. So
okay, great, thank you.
One says, can plate umpires go behind the mound rather than behind the plate to call balls and strikes for social distancing by rule? Yes. I think that answer we gave was if there's two umpires, we want the plate umpire to be behind the catcher. If there's one umpire only for some reason, they couldn't find a second or the second got sick and you're forced to do it with one, then that umpire may be able to do it from behind the plate or behind the mound. Is that right, guys?
We prefer behind the plate, but you're correct. Yep, they can go behind the mound with one.
Can a pitcher use hand sanitizer in lieu of going to mouth? Not quite sure what that means. If they go to their mouth, the ball has to come out and they have to use the hand sanitizer before they throw another pitch. If they put hand sanitizer on, you know, they probably shouldn't be able to put that on and then immediately go to delivering a pitch. They probably need to, they can't have that wetness either, so they might have to wipe.
Alcohol is going to dry that pretty fast.
Yeah. If we see a player touch his mouth and then two batters later he touches the ball, are we to declare a delayed dead ball at that time? How long is an allowable amount of time between the time a player touches the ball and his mouth should we allow?
If you see someone going to the mouth, catch it now. There's going to be a lot of people watching. We're trying to be proactive with this. And we know there's a lot of moving parts, especially in a two-man crew. But if you see it, and again, you're talking this situation with two batters later, after that first batter, just say, hey, there's nothing going on, kill it, have him put sanitizer on his hands, and we'll move on to the next batter. The more baseballs that we can keep live in play will make everyone's life a little bit easier going through.
The next one talks a little bit about the media box. Mentioned earlier that players, coaches, and umpires were the only ones on the field, but then mentioned something about media box. If the media box, and basically it's if the school is being encouraged to figure out what to do with the media. But if their only place that they can put them is inside the fence for taking pictures and whatnot, there still can be a media box. There can only be one person in that media box. So if it's there, we play it like it's there. And we're just trying to get schools to try to figure out other ways to maybe not have them down there, but it doesn't mean they can't be there.
Sure. And Mike, that's a good question. And that was, you know, that did seem contradictory, and I see how it could. And I apologize for that. But there are some situations where there's nowhere else to put them. So they're going to have to be there.
It says, will Principal Park and potential schools be providing masks? I don't think schools will be providing masks if you're talking about to the umpires. If you want to wear a mask, you'll need to probably provide your own. I don't know about Principal Park.
Principal Park won't provide them either.
Okay. So if you want to wear one, provide your own. One says IRS regulation clearly state that independent contractors' dress may not be dictated by the employer. If they do, you are an employee. I don't know what the question is for sure.
Again, that's in relation to what Tom had already said. As independent contractors, we are trying to figure out what schools can mandate that you do before the contest. And that a lot, if they say we're doing a temperature check for everybody, that include, if it's everybody, that would include you. If it's simply, we know there's a couple of schools out there that have said we want umpires to wear masks. We're trying to figure out if legally they can tell you to do that without crossing the line from independent contractor to employee. And once we have that answer, it will be shared both to you and to our member schools.
If a runner has begun to steal, we are to call the play dead if the pitcher goes to his mouth. Is this correct?
I think that's going to be judgment. That if the runner is already on their way, I don't know. Jared, Todd, what do you guys think here?
Let's come up with an interpretation so we can share with both you and the coaches prior to the start of the season.
Yep.
Because again, we do not want this to become some gamesmanship with a delayed steal and all of a sudden, or not a delayed steal, but a balk steal situation where all of a sudden I can go to my mouth and prevent a base being taken.
If a player spits or does it multiple times after being instructed to stop, what do we do?
I think I'd get the coach and I'd say, Coach, I've asked your young man to stop spitting and he won't. I'd like you to ask him to stop spitting. And if he does it again, then we're going to remove him from the game. Or, at some point you got to say you're not following directions here. But I think I'd get the coach involved first.
If mouth to ball happens in the warm-up, should we stop the warm-up? Do we let them extend beyond 1 minute to get 5 pitches? I would say keep it at a minute. If they're going to their mouth in warm-ups, then they're taking their own time. But you would have to I would say you would have to take that ball out, wouldn't you, Jared and Todd?
Yes.
Treat it like it's live, but don't give them extra time. If they require masks, why wouldn't they supply them?
Well, Principal Park is requiring us to wear masks and they're not supplying them for us either. I don't mean to make light of that, but I think, it's a personal piece of equipment.
The next one asks if we can get an IHSAA embroidered mask. Yeah, but he does say, in all seriousness, is there a specific color we need for a mask? Again, I don't think there's a definite, I would try to keep it as plain as possible as an umpire.
Our advisory and us as a staff are not nearly concerned with the color of the mask compared to softball with it being optic yellow.
Right.
Will there be a school that will require masks before and after game?
We know there are some schools asking that question to us, and that's why we're trying to figure out what they can require of you, again, as an independent contractor.
Are we required to change uniforms between games? So if, let's just say we have doubleheader or JV varsity.
I don't think you're required
I
to.
don't think it's a required. I think it's a recommended. But again, it's sometimes tough to ask people to have multiple sets of uniforms and be changing all the time. So use your best judgment on it. If you've got the equipment, then maybe that's a good thing to do.
We do state it's where we made a requirement to wear clean uniforms for each game. So each game of a doubleheader would need to be changed. So if you are working a double, plan on bringing 2 uniforms.
Okay. If as a plate umpire you're wearing a mask, can you walk away and remove it during innings?
I think I'd say yes, because if you're going to take a drink of water, you're going to need to do that. So as long as you're away from people. Mhm.
Are we legally liable for COVID being spread during the game? Did you address that, Tom? Is that something that we're still?
We talked about not being covered by insurance, but you know, I'm not an attorney, and you know, I think some people would say that the athletic association might have some liability because we're letting the games be played, we're letting the season go on, but I don't know that to be true for sure. Schools that are allowing their teams to play, and again, I don't know that for sure. I think as I'd seek the advice of an attorney if I was concerned about that.
What is the protocol we will follow if there is a player injured on the field?
Let the coach and or trainer attend to the player.
Next one is from Jim. Jim Bruck mentions, and this is good. Good reminder. If a pitcher goes to his mouth on the rubber, if he's already on the rubber and he goes to his mouth, then that's a balk. If he does it,
good clarification, Jim.
Rubber, if he does it off the rubber, then you kill it. Okay.
Yep.
Will schools be able to hold scrimmages before games start?
Yes. No fans, and but they can have those scrimmages. Have to be inter-squad scrimmages only. They can't scrimmage another team. They can have an inter-squad scrimmage, and they can bring umpires into that inter-squad scrimmage.
Will we know in advance of a game that we would be required to wear a mask?
I mean, I would think that that's that would be a courtesy, right, by the team, by the school that's contracting you. And again, I think I would check with my assigner.
Okay. Next one says, if we have two umps and one must go behind the plate, where I live and ump, they are strongly recommending not going behind the plate.
Maybe Neil contact us tomorrow and let's talk through who that might be, and we'll have a conversation with the schools to find out what the thinking is.
Ray, if team extends dugout to the outfield line, are we asking a chalk line to designate it so we know dead ball area?
Yes.
That's a yes. Is there any thought about umpires using latex gloves during the season? Again, I think we treat that just like the mask. That's if you.
Yeah, I'd be a little careful of that. Some students have an allergy to latex, and if it happens to be the catcher and they've got an airborne allergy to it, that'd be a problem. So I'd say non-latex gloves if you're going to wear gloves.
And I'd also say, keep in mind, we are telling you, don't handle equipment, don't shake hands with people, carry hand sanitizer with you. So take all those precautions. Let's see. Received an email from local association that NASO does not have the exclusion for communicable diseases. What is the protocol if a player has a fever before the game starts? If a player has a fever before the game,
they can't play. They're sent home. Same as an umpire or a coach or anybody else for that matter. They can't be there.
Could a school require a plate umpire to go behind the pitcher? Could a school require a plate umpire to go behind the pitcher?
Let us discuss that internally, and we'll get some guidance out to you.
I didn't hear you finish the question on if a pitcher goes to his mouth, wipes, then goes to the rubber.
Ball is killed.
Yeah, once you see him go to his mouth, if he's not on the rubber, that's dead ball, and you throw the ball out and sanitize the hand. You can have only one by the plate. You can have only one. You can have one by the plate for fair foul, and the calling pitcher behind the pitcher. And keep same mechanics. Field has first and second, and home has home and third as an example. Okay, I don't know what that means for sure, I guess. Heard two different answers on uniforms being changed every game. If required, does that include pants, shirts, socks, hat, etc.? Does that mean players will be changing uniforms between every game? That's all at Jared and Todd. Do you have that on?
Our guidelines for the umpires have been to change, and that would be shirts and pants. We are not requiring the kids to switch between games, but we also have heard from many coaches that plan on doing so. And partly, if they're not going to, some schools do not have a second uniform.
Can schools extend the dugout toward the foul poles and requires those individuals to be outside the fence?
Yes,
Yeah, they can.
school can. If the school has room to put them behind the fence, they can do that, right?
Yeah. Comment on mask requirement. Iowa City West is requiring that the home plate umpire wear a mask, also the catcher when working at West this summer. That's from Roger Johnson.
Okay. Thanks, Roger. Again, we're checking on that. But thank you for sharing that information.
Looks like Neil clarified here, said, sorry, should have said it's our city health person strongly recommending it. I think that was for the, come on, help me.
Umpire behind the mound.
Yeah, yeah. If we are not touching the baseballs, do we need ball bags? Probably not for balls, but it depends on if you want, you know, a indicator or a broom or anything like that to store them in. If you put them in your pockets, that's probably fine too. You'll have to figure that out. What about sanitizer on ball rule is no foreign substance on ball?
They're not necessarily putting the sanitizer directly on the ball. I mean, we're putting the hand sanitizer, putting it on our hands, to put it on their hands to dry it off. Like I said, there's alcohol in there, it's going to dry up,
Gotcha.
quickly there for the most part. So they're not putting it directly onto the baseball.
Okay. Umpires required to change between games. We've answered that a couple, 2 or 3 times. Yes. So many of the over-counter products have a kill time of 10 to 30 minutes, which means the items need to be moist. Just a heads up. Ball bags without balls would be an excellent place to put lineup cards and your own sanitizer. Thank you. Are we going to examine baseballs if we are not touching the baseballs? Get them to the catcher and have the catcher show you the ball as best as you can, I think was the answer.
That looks like it, huh? Okay.
Got 3 more here.
Okay.
What do you see, Todd? I think these are ones that we've hit on.
They are not are they disinfecting the foul balls before they come back in? No. The only time we are disinfecting a ball during a game is if they lick their fingers, and then they touch the baseball.
I think we talked a little bit about, kind of a cold night and guys will blow on their hands. Same thing, right? That's going to their mouth.
If in doubt, have them sanitize their hands, especially early in the season while we get things started.
Do you have a suggestion to use greater distance behind the catcher?
Whatever you feel like is possible or is required for you to still do your job in an adequate manner.
Okay.
How do we know what is done before the ball comes in? Well, you probably don't. If a foul ball goes out of play and is retrieved, it should be sanitized before coming back into the game. If the ball comes back in from a fan, should the ball be sanitized?
We are following the NFHS Sports Medicine Advisory Committee recommendations on when we are going to sanitize a ball between that and the Department of Public Health here in the state of Iowa. The ball will only be sanitized during a game, if someone's hands, there has been saliva put to the baseball. Anything else will be disinfected after the game when the game is over, the game is done for the night. Can we chew gum? Yes, you can chew gum. We recommend you do not blow bubbles.
Would it be possible to have the schools that are going to require the umpires to wear masks tell IHSAA and send a list to umpires?
I think we want to find out the answer first. And then we can talk about something like that. If we find out that the answer is yes, schools can do that, then we'll do whatever we can to help you. Yeah, good question on brushing the plate. Yes, I think that's appropriate. Just ask them to step aside.
How many balls supplied for the game? It's really no different than any other time, although they may find out that they want to have a few more available. One of the questions that came earlier was how many balls go to the defensive dugout? My suggestion was if they're going to use a dozen balls for the game, then 6 of them go to the home and 6 of them go to the visitor. The home team can get them back at the end of the night. And coaches and players and umpires chew seeds. No. Seeds are out. Only the defense put balls back into play, not the team. I'm assuming not the offensive team. That's correct. So one half of an inning, it's going to come out of one dugout, and the other half, it's going to come out of the others. That way, the coach of the pitcher is the one handling the ball, or whoever's throwing that ball in is from that same team, as best as we can. As far as the recapping, this is being recorded and it will be put on our website when we get to that. Hopefully here in the next, I don't know how long that'll take, Jared, but hopefully not more than a day or two.
Right.
So
we'll also have a script of the questions that were answered via the chat that were not answered live during the meeting. So you'll be able to access that as well too.
Yeah, Keith's just making a suggestion to come prepared for the face mask, carry it with you in case it's something that might get required.
Good thought.
Probably not a bad idea. No different than when you go to get groceries. It doesn't hurt to have one with you. Choose to wear it or not. Are we going to get new rule books this year? New officials only this year are getting new rule books. So what you, as an umpire, then you've got the rules meeting, online rules meeting that talks about new rule changes. You've got any other resources that we have or the NFHS has about rule changes. And then you've got last year's rule book. So make sure you jot down things in your rule book or give yourself reminders about what the new rules are. There's a lot of changes with that player DH rule. Clarification, when a foul ball goes out of play, it should be sanitized by defense before brought back in the game. We don't know if a fan just had their hand in the mouth. Well, we've addressed that and said,
if softball is requiring this, this means Jean has changed her mind in the last 24 hours. I'm not trying to get upset with this, but we had worked hand in hand with the girls' union to be as fair and consistent across both sports, so umpires doing both would not have to worry about different protocols.
we've been told no, they don't have to sanitize the baseball. If it comes back in and the coach does, then good for them, I guess, but it's not a requirement by us. Remind about NOXI baseballs. Todd, did you?
That's all part of the rules meeting. We're not, I mean,
Okay.
this is dealing with the COVID-19 aspect of things. The NOXI baseballs are part of the rules meeting. The DH is all part of the rules meeting. This presentation is to work on the COVID-19 and to work on that aspects of things from this. So those are all things that can begin on the rules meeting and that we will share information about. There's information about the DH. We have stuff on our website regarding the DH is concerned. So,
Okay. If we're not disinfecting the balls, why would it matter what team put it back in?
Then only your kid's hands have been on the ball and not the other team's hands.
and also the defensive team is in the dugout. The offensive team is out on the bases. So you've got a first base coach and a third base coach already in the coaching box. So who's going to be throwing the ball in? Some only have two coaches. Some only might have one coach and a kid. So who's going to throw that baseball in? So the protocol has been that the defensive team is going to be throwing in again. A couple of these things we're going to see what happens here in the first week or two.
Yeah.
These are protocols that we've talked with the National Federation about. We are not just making these protocols up. We've sought data and input from various groups before we do these things. So we'll find out what happens in the first week here regarding throwing the baseballs in. The umpires not handling the balls. We might find out that we have to change things, but this is how we are going to begin that process, is with the defensive team throwing the ball in that goes out of play.
Okay, there are a lot of questions here about the foul balls. We'll visit internally. We'll visit with the girls' union, and we will get you a definitive answer in the the early email that comes out, just reminding everybody about some of these changes. Okay, so let's put that one to rest and put that on us to look into and get you the right answer.
Coaching box, is he encouraged to maintain distance with runner? They often shoulder up when they arrive.
6 feet apart, 10 to 30 minutes long. If it's just for a second to step in and tell them something and then get back, I don't think that's a problem.
Are the water bottles that we bring allowed in the dugout? So
the umpires bring their own water bottles that they're supposed to bring. Yeah, certainly can be a spot in the dugout that can be where your water bottle can be, just like it might be now when you were provided water bottles by the home team. So there'd be a place for you to have that. So going back to the question regarding the sanitizer aspect of things, if once he goes to his mouth and then he puts sanitizer on and then he touches, the ball after that, we're not going to consider that to be a foreign substance, and we're not going to violate that or call it type of a penalty pitching violation for that.
Okay. If umpires required to wear a mask, shouldn't the players be required to wear a mask as well?
That's why we're checking.
What about a collision between both players? Both stop and sanitize where contact made between them. Other with time called, between each other with time called.
I think that's an issue between the coach and their athletic trainer about how to properly take care of an issue with two players that collide with each other. That I don't think that's an issue for our umpires. I think that's between the coaches and the athletic trainers regarding taking care of that. I mean, you do what you would normally do under regular circumstances.
I see a possible issue with promptly getting a change of balls in quickly. Could we recommend the coaches have a ball coach, like in football they have a get back coach? I don't know what we've recommended. Jared and Todd, you might have some better answer to this, if there's somebody designated for that or not.
We communicate with our coaches, and we understand it's going to be a slow process to begin with. And again, we'll need to we will evaluate this as the season goes on.
Would you recommend or suggest each team trying to use the same balls when on defense?
Yes, that's why we're having the teams throw the balls in from the dugout.
Right. Being a healthcare worker, hand sanitizer takes 20 seconds to completely evaporate. Will we give extra time for a pitcher to let this happen?
Yes.
Guys, if you have other questions that you haven't thought of and you'd like to submit those to Jared or Todd or Louie, please feel free to do that via email, and we'll compile these and any extra questions and make those available for everybody as well. Again, we thank you for taking the time out of your schedules to join us. Again, I want to thank you for your willingness to serve in this capacity. Just like you, we have a lot of questions that are not answered or not fully answered. And our job is to try to get those answers for you, and we'll do our best. One of the reasons that we did these Zooms was to hear the questions that we didn't think of. And you brought some of those up. So we appreciate that. And, it'll get our wheels turning, and we'll try as best we can to get the answers and get those out to you as quickly as possible. So thank you so much for tonight. Thanks for all you do. And we look forward to having you work the games once the 15th gets here.